Hey there, I'm Arun Sivashankaran,
And I'm David Jansen.
and you're listening to the Revenue Funnel Optimization Podcast by Funnel Envy.
This show's for B2B marketers, demand gen teams, and go-to-market folks who are over the hype and want the real stuff.
We're talking about what actually drives results across the funnel. Experiments, website optimization, buyer journeys that convert, not just vanity metrics.
It's tactical, it's honest, and yeah, sometimes it's messy.
That's how real revenue gets made, so let's get into it.
This is extremely surprising to me. Most organizations don't have their marketing data in a central place. It's still in LinkedIn and Google Ads accounts. Rude awakening that your marketing data is absolute garbage. And this is what you hear from AI companies as well, right? Like, you can have all the amazing AI, but if your data structures are all messed up, you can't do anything with that AI.
Bringing it back to MMM and incrementality then, let's say we're listening to this and, in terms of historical data and, some of the organizational, things, you're there and you're a good candidate for MMM and more robust incrementality experimentation. What are the challenges that you should expect to run into? Let's say you're talking to Pranav and his team about Paramark and implementing Paramark. What should you anticipate in terms of some of the challenges and things you want to do to get your house in order to actually be successful at it?
I think step one, and Jason will appreciate this a lot, is having a very clear sense of what success looks like. And what I mean by that is, as a marketing organization, are you held accountable to, I'm just picking on some metrics, right? Are you held accountable to traffic? Are you held accountable to, and we're going to focus on B2B, given that I think most of our audience is going to be B2B. Is it leads? Is it sales accepted opportunities? Is it some stage 3 definition of pipeline? Is it close one revenue? What is the thing that ultimately you are going to have to present at the QBR, at the board, and what have you? Start there and make sure that that data is clean, it's complete, it's well structured, everyone agrees on the definitions, there's no flip-flopping, because you can't go back and just change your mind 3 months later. It's like, actually, I want to look at leads now and not pipeline. Like, the whole model has been built and geared to a pipeline. So that's one. Second is, this is extremely surprising to me, and Jason, tell me if you have a different experience. Most organizations don't have their marketing data in a central place. It's still in LinkedIn and Google Ads accounts, and some in Marketo and Salesforce, and some is literally living in spreadsheets. And so step number 2, rude awakening that your marketing data is absolute garbage and messy, and you need to centralize it, and that's going to take a good amount of time to just clean up, normalize, validate before you can feed it into a model. And this is what you hear from AI companies as well, right? Like, you can have all the amazing AI, but if your data structures are all messed up, you can't do anything with that AI. Then I would say a big pitfall is not involving your finance and your analytics team in the process. You don't want to get a model up and running before you've socialized and sold this internally to your finance person. Because if you show them, 6 months later, hey, look, amazing insights from MMM and testing, and the CFO is like, wait, what are we doing? Why wasn't I involved? I just don't buy it. You're just introducing thrash for no reason. Get them involved early on in the process, make it a joint effort. That's going to save you a lot of pain. Last but not the least, most B2B companies don't have geotagging on their data. What is geotagging? If you want to do incrementality testing, which is geo-based, which means I'm going to cut spend or increase spend or test a new channel in these 5 states, and then I'm going to monitor your business metrics in those 5 states. For that, you need to have your traffic and your leads at the very minimum tagged to specific geographies. Where is that sort of stuff originating from? This is where the touch data comes in, Jason. And you are essentially looking at every lead, and this was originated from Oregon or from SF or from LA. That allows you to then create control and test groups. And if you don't have that data, you're kind of stuck on step 1 when it comes to testing.
That's great. And I'm definitely want to hear Jason's perspective on this, but just wanted to point out as an aside that we made it 25 minutes into this conversation before anyone said AI. And so
Yay!
2025 has got to be some kind of record. But Jason, what are your thoughts on some of the challenges as if you're a candidate for MMM and you're looking at implementing a platform, what should you be prepared for?
I definitely echo Pranav's sentiment that having a data warehouse or a central source of truth is kind of step one. That's absolutely non-negotiable. I think as a part of having that source of truth, you're going to be doing some amount of stitching and deduplication in terms of trying to make sure that this one individual is not assigned multiple data points or treated as multiple individuals and thus has multiple votes in terms of this modeling. One of the things that I run into quite a bit is when people are running ads and they're looking at in-platform metrics, say on Facebook ads, and Facebook will paint an overly optimistic picture of the conversions that came from those ads because it doesn't know about the other channels involved, the other tactics involved, and they're also going to be taking credit for those situations where they were both involved in that journey. Being able to deduplicate those people is challenging, even when you have them all in the same place, even when you have them in the data warehouse. But it's definitely, impossible if you're just looking at the in-platform metrics or a single silos view.
Yeah, I wonder if you'd be able to, Jason, maybe differentiate the data engineering lift, because this can be a scary point for marketing, right? Because, whether it's MTA or MMM, there's often some data engineering lift, and that's the black box. And all of a sudden, there's multi-month, multi-year, in some cases, project plans and engineering efforts, and they don't always have great visibility into what that entails. Maybe if you could differentiate some of that data engineering lift between like an MTA touchpoint based approach versus an aggregate MMM approach, and what that really means for the marketing teams.
Sure. So I would say that there's a dramatic difference in terms of the data prep that needs to happen to drive a media mix modeling versus attribution types of models. With media mix modeling, you really need to make sure that the data is clean, but you don't need to worry so much about joining the data together between silos in such a way that you're making sure that this person is exactly the same person as what exists in that other silo of data, because you're dealing largely with aggregates. You're looking at what is the aggregate spend or leads generated or revenue generated or X, and how does it relate to the output, the Y. So you're really just dealing with aggregates, and with those aggregates, assuming that you're dealing with clean deduplicated data, still can be from different silos that have not been joined together. They still can be from a situation where you don't have a clear distinction of anonymous users and how they relate to the known users that are downstream from that. One of the things I want to kind of get back to, a question that I had for Pranav is, one of the tricks of the trade in terms of attribution sometimes is defining proxy metrics or precursor metrics, which allow us to see, especially when there's a life cycle of a lead of a significant amount of time between the point where they're known or they self-identify to the point where they become a customer. And the sparsity of becoming customer is so much more than the number of leads that you collect. Is there a concept where you might want to look at, say, conversion rate or qualification rate or something higher up in the funnel in terms of a modeled metric that you use in media mix modeling, which is a tactic we typically use in attribution to make sure that we're kind of looking at having a clear signal of this is, A leads to B and B leads to C, so we can assume that A leads to C eventually, but we're going to model it based on the relationship between A and B. Is there something similar there, or is the media mix modeling not require that type of instrument?
No, it's a good point. You actually hit on a very important point, which is the target metric that you are modeling is the most important part of the project. For many of our B2B customers, SaaS customers, we'll actually pick something that is pretty high up in the funnel. So that might be an MQL or a sales qualified op. We're not going all the way to closed one right off the bat. And the reason we're not doing that is there's many more variables that happen between an MQL or an SQO and a closed one. And those may not be your marketing mix. It's the sales interaction. It's the demo that the SE did. It's the pricing and packaging that you custom negotiated. There's all of these factors that have nothing to do with your marketing mix or your media mix. Now, you can also build multi-stage models. So that means you're actually modeling MQL or SQO, and then you have a continuation from MQL, SQO to closed one, and that gets a little bit more fancy. I don't know that it's worth the squeeze for most businesses, but you can do that as well. So not really looking at the conversion rate as a metric, but the conversion rate factors into how you translate from MQL, SQO to a closed one, but you're still modeling MQL and SQO in the model itself, or even in the incrementality testing results. If you've had wild variations in your conversion rate, your MQL to closed one used to be 10%, now it's 50%, I'm just making this up, and then it's down again to 30%, that tells me that MQL is not really a good leading indicator of closed one. Your definition of qualified might be wrong. You might have done lots of weird things with your marketing to generate these MQLs. So all of that is part of when you do the initial data collection and cleanup, identifying what is a true leading indicator of eventual closed one. That is also in control of your marketing organization.
Here's a quick thought. If forms are giving you garbage leads,
We've got the playbook for that, straight from hundreds of real experiments.
it's called the Lead Conversions Playbook, and it's all about how to drive quality leads that your sales team actually wants to talk to.
Grab it in the show notes.
What does that ongoing effort look like then? So let's say you picked your initial metric, you've rolled it out, you've got cross-functional buy-in, it's live, results are being communicated from both the MMM and your tests. But you're learning things as you go along, right? And you're learning, well, maybe you do have fluctuations in your model, or you need to change your metric, or whatever it is, right? What does that ongoing effort and maintenance look like to ensure that it continues to evolve along the models and the outputs of those models continue to evolve alongside the business?
I think most businesses are going to get to a steady state fairly quickly within like the first couple of quarters, where you've stabilized and you have a pretty good sense of here's the metric, here are all the input variables, and that's basically your media mix. Maybe some non-media variables if you're a customer that has impact from the outside world. So you get into a steady state. Every month, you get a report card that tells you, hey, here's all your leads or pipeline broken out by incremental and baseline. And all of the incremental, here's how it breaks down by individual channels or sub-channels. That report card makes it really easy for you to get a, apples to apples comparison of whatever your internal metrics are for your CFO and CEO. The more interesting part after that is experimentation. So great, all of this reporting is fantastic, but what are you going to do with it? And that's where I think the culture of experimentation comes in, and what you're really trying to do is grow the business. If you're acquiring the same amount of pipeline every quarter, that's not that fun, right? What marketers want, what the business wants is, how do we grow pipe by 10%, 20%, 30% every quarter? And you use the outputs from these models as a way to identify hypotheses for testing. So an example here might be, hey, we did this like very small YouTube test, and it's showing really positively in the model. It's not showing anything from last click attribution because who clicks on YouTube ads, but it's showing really well on the model. Let's test increasing it by 100K in these specific geographies and so on and so forth, right? So you're constantly launching new tests for existing channels, for new channels. You're making budget allocation changes, and you're then also generating new data for the model.
I have a question there. I feel like a lot of the paid media teams that I work with could almost be described as schizophrenic in nature. The opposite of
Don't tell them that. Don't tell them that.
But how do you use something like the tools that we're talking about here to come up with those hypotheses when you really need them to come up with net new ideas, instead of, oh, let's try changing the color of the button on the ad or something, derivative like that?
I think it's easy to paint paid media teams in that characterization. Take a giant step back and think about what is advertising, what is paid media. It's all creative.
Mm-hmm.
And if you hire creative people and hold their hands behind their back and tie them up and say, no, everything needs to be completely predictable and completely, in this 2x2 before you launch it, you're going to get, weird outcomes. If you unleash their creativity, which means empower them with like, hey, come up with your boldest, craziest, creative ideas. We've got your back with testing and measurement. Your job is to unlock the alpha. We are there as a support function to help you understand whether that's having the impact or not that you thought it would. You get a very different outcome. And so that's the conversation with the paid media teams is get their creative juices flowing and get that in a roadmap format and in a scientific sort of method. And you just rinse and repeat. Now, like I said, it's got to happen at top-down ownership and buy-in before that becomes a possibility.
I'm interested in the future, and this is where you can talk about AI, LLMs, all you want to. Where is all of this going? And I'm interested in both your perspectives, Jason. I know you're knee deep in LLM and AI-driven development like me. Pranav, I know you integrated deeply into the Paramark platform. So yeah, where's this going? And how should marketers prepare for the future?
I think one of the things that I'm most interested in is, seeing the maturity of the executive staff be more comfortable with engaging with the data directly via AI. Arun, you and I had a discussion previously where we thought there might be an outcome where there was going to be a lower stakes in terms of potentially asking poor questions, stupid questions of the data because they weren't going to an analyst anymore; they were going to an AI with no judgment. And I'm excited to see that future come about because I think a lot of executives have a hard time not only understanding what is the data trying to tell them, but coming up with the appropriate questions to ask of the data. And I think that only comes from practice and maturity of asking questions and understanding where this line of questions is leading to. And more importantly, how would we take action based on getting an answer to a question, asking questions that are actionable, in said another way, is something that I welcome because I spend a lot of my time, even though I'm in analytics engineering and data engineering consulting, I spend still a lot of time doing translation and reading the tea leaves on behalf of people who should be able to read it themselves. But for whatever reason, through experience, through just sheer attention spans, that has not been a reality that has come about even with having data warehouses and the best analytics and the best data available to these individuals.
Yeah, I love that sentiment, Jason. I think the natural language querying of all of your data, like it's going to happen very quickly. Now, there's some pitfalls. The pitfalls is garbage in, garbage out. So you can only ask it questions if you're confident that the data is solid. And it's still not the case, you guys. And I'll give you an example. Literally, yesterday or a day before, we have a customer, big SaaS customer, and the head of marketing was looking at the model outputs, and his spidey sense went, hey, something about that spend number for that particular channel looks off. We just launched a massive new thing. Maybe it's not getting categorized correctly. So if you just trust everything blindly, and this is after they have an amazing data engineering team, they're using the most sophisticated stuff with Paramark, but you still have gaps like that. I'm very optimistic. I think that gap is going to go down and down, but everything in the data infrastructure has to get leveled up from the source data, the ingestion, the transformation, the schemas, right? And I think it's going to happen, but it's going to take longer than people think. And the reason for that is you imagine your staff is actually getting leaner and leaner. Those tools haven't really caught up to be fully sort of autonomous. And so you're going to have this weird pressure in the middle of the staff is being asked to do more with less. The tools aren't really all AI forward yet. And we know that LLMs struggle with structured data many times. So temper your expectations with AI for the next couple of years. But at the same time, I think the future is very clear. 10 years out, 20 years out, 30 years out, the way we do data is going to be completely different.
I think too the understanding of what does the data mean. There's some amount of
Yep.
the ad platform says we got so many clicks, but over in our web analytics, it says we only got this many hits from this channel. Shouldn't those be the same? And just kind of understanding why they're not the same, why they shouldn't tie off. but maybe AI is going to allow them to wield that additional complexity in a way that's going to allow them to do more with less.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think it's gonna for the executives and leadership that's willing to get hands-on, it is gonna unlock those opportunities. So that takes us to the end of our time. I want to thank Pranav from Paramark again. He's building, the next generation MMM and incrementality testing platform, as well as Jason from Domain Methods. Leadership in analytics, data readiness, and AI readiness. So thank you both for being on today and joining me to talk about measurement, attribution, and experimentation.
Thanks
for having us.
All right, that's a wrap for this episode of the Revenue Funnel Optimization Podcast.
If you like what you heard, hit subscribe. We've got more tactical stuff always coming out.
You can drop us a comment or share this with someone who'd find it helpful.
And if you're ready to dive deep into your funnel, check the link in the show notes to book a free call with the team.
Thanks for hanging out with us. Catch you next time.